6 and 7, right? 6 and 7?
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Vijana Balaba Girivanadari Jaya Gopijana Balaba Girivanadari Jaya Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Balaba Girivanadari Jaya Jaya Gopijana Balaba Girivanadari Jaya Gopi Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parabhajakacharya Asatara Satasisi Mad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Glories of Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This morning we're continuing reading Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 35th chapter, and we're doing texts 6 and 7. Barhiṇa-stabaka-dhātu-palāśair. Bhagna-malla-paribarha-viḍambaḥ. Karhicit sa-bala alasa gopair. Samāhvayati yatra mukundaḥ. Tarhi bhagna-gatayaḥ sarito vai. Is that up there? tat-padāmbuja-rajo nila-nītam. Spṛhayatīr vayam ivābahu-puṇyāḥ. prema-vepita-bhujāḥ stimitāpaḥ. Anyone? barhiṇa-stabaka-dhātu-palāśair. bhagna-gatayaḥ sarito vai. tat-padāmbuja-rajo nila-nītam. bhagna-gatayaḥ sarito vai. barhiṇa-stabaka-dhātu-palāśair. baddha-malla-paribarha-viḍambaḥ. sa-bala gopair. samāhvayati yatra mukundaḥ. Barhiṇa of peacocks, stabaka with the tail feathers, dhatu with colored minerals, palāśaiḥ and with leaves, baddha arranged, malla of a wrestler, paribarha the apparel, viḍambaḥ imitating, karhicit sometimes, sa-balaḥ with Balarāma, Ali my dear gopī, saha he, gopair, with the cowherd boys, gaha, the cows, samāhvayati, calls, yatra, when, mukundaḥ, Lord Mukundaḥ, tarhi, then, bhagna, broken, gatayaḥ, their movement, sarito, the rivers, vayam, indeed, tat, his, pada-ambuja, of the lotus feet, rajaha, the dust, anila, by the wind, nila-nītam, brought, spṛhayatīr, hankering for, vayam, ourselves, just like, ivābahu, slight, puṇyāḥ, the piety to whose credit, prema, due to love of God, vepita, trembling, bhujāḥ, whose arms, waves, stimitāpaḥ, stopped, apparel, whose water. Translation: My dear gopī, sometimes Mukunda imitates the appearance of a wrestler by decorating himself with leaves, peacock feathers, and colored minerals. Then, in the company of Balarāma and the cowherd boys, he plays his flute to call the cows. At that time, the rivers stop flowing, their waters stunned by the ecstasy they feel, as they eagerly wait for the wind to bring them the dust of his lotus feet. But like us, the rivers are not very pious, and thus they merely wait with their arms trembling out of love. You can repeat. My dear gopī, sometimes Mukunda imitates the appearance of a wrestler by decorating himself with leaves, peacock feathers, and colored minerals. Then in the company of Balarāma and the cowherd boys, he plays his flute to call the cows. At that time, the rivers stop flowing, their water stunned by the ecstasy they feel, as they eagerly await for the wind to bring them the dust of his lotus feet. But like us, the rivers are not very pious, and thus they merely wait with their arms trembling out of love. Purport by the disciples of Srila Prabhupada. The gopis state here that the sound of Krishna's flute causes even inanimate objects like rivers to become conscious and then stunned in ecstasy. Just as the gopis could not always be in Krishna's physical association, the rivers could not come to the Lord's lotus feet, although they desired the Lord. Their movement was checked by ecstasy, and their arms, their waves, trembled with love of God. Oma gnātimirandasya gnānjana salakaya chaksulanmilitam jena tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Svaya Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sva Patandikam Vanchakopa Tirubhischa Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaura Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So if you weren't aware and you're feeling a little strange, the eclipse is going on right now, total solar eclipse. It's not visible here in India, it's going over Australia right now. So effects are always there. Of course, we know Prabhupada said, one kick of his foot, Krishna can cook thousands of rahus. So for devotees, we chant. In every condition, chant. We heard that yesterday. All these verses are about ecstasy. See, yesterday, Prabhu there, Dharmatma Prabhu told me in ecstasy, I give class today. So rather than worried, I thought it's about ecstasy. I know something about ecstasy. Not personally, but I've seen Prabhupada so many times in ecstasy. We've described it. We've described one type. Prabhupada sitting on the Vyasasana. It could be during class, right in the middle of his class. We know, we've heard in Atlanta, 2-minute class. He went into ecstasy, which means like the rivers became frozen, just frozen. And that was normally the type of ecstasy we would experience with Srila Prabhupada. But there were other kinds of ecstasy that we could also experience. Prabhupada laughing. I've described Prabhupada's laugh. I never saw anyone laugh with the way Srila Prabhupada would laugh, because it had, like everything in Krishna consciousness, there are many different levels. You know, we say perfect, more perfect, most perfect. So everything is, the laughing is also like that. Prabhupada would laugh, and then he would just laugh, and of course laughing, you always see a big smile on the face, eyes become very large, but then he would start shaking if the laugh was to continue. This was not a normal, what we would say, this was not a normal laugh. This was very special laughs, and I saw it many times. And then his body would shake. Then he had this way, everything would just start moving, and he would start slapping his hands, and then the tears would come from his eyes. So this is ecstasy. Relationship with Krishna, ecstatic. Then there was dancing ecstasy. Seeing Srila Prabhupada dance. So there was 50 years ago, it was 50 years ago, just a few months before when Prabhupada was here, traveling in India. I was doing a little research. I was with Prabhupada from September 5th, 1972 to the end of 1973. In that time, Prabhupada went around the world 3 times. 16 months, 3 times he went around the world. The longest he stayed anywhere was in Los Angeles for almost 6 weeks. He stayed in Los Angeles. Otherwise, always moving. It included going to Australia, going to Indonesia, going to New Zealand. We say around the world, it was everywhere. Not just no, not like that. Skipping here, there, wherever temples were inviting. They were fortunate, he would go there. So it was when he was here, the end of 72, he did 3 pandals. We know he did, the first one was Hyderabad, and the next one was Ahmedabad, and then finally Mumbai, and Cross Maidan Festival. All of them were attended by 10 to 20,000 people every night. The first place we went to, maybe it was the second place, was Ahmedabad and Hyderabad. Didn't know which, but he went to Hyderabad. Hyderabad, very many pious, nice Vedic culture people. 1972, you saw all the men, dhoti, kurta, like that, you know, their little yogi pants. All the women in saris. So the first day Prabhupada there, they had his arrival, and he stayed at Mr. Pitti's house. Piti. He was very wealthy, one of the wealthiest people in Hyderabad. Had a big, big palatial house. And he gave Prabhupada one of the cars for the first parade around the town of Hyderabad. And thousands came out. Everyone, they loved Prabhupada in Hyderabad so much. All the police, everyone involved, they were at this festival. Everyone was singing and dancing. Prabhupada sitting in the back seat of a convertible, Chevy Impala, 1958. This was 1975. This was for sure the only Chevrolet in all of India, 1972. And Prabhupada was sitting in the back. I see the photo and I'm sitting next to him, but you can see everyone. So when we were there, Prabhupada was there for a week. And again, every night, Prabhupada spoke in English. In Hyderabad, many people even at that time were speaking English. So they attended. Tens of thousands of people attended. So after one day, 2 days, and we would all have breakfast in Mr. Pitti's back patio. It was a very big patio, very long, opened up to a nice yard, garden in the back. Myself, Pradyumna, Shyamasundar, he had gone somewhere. Tamal Krishna Maharaj was there. Harikesh, before he was Swami, he was Brahmachari, he was there. And we were having breakfast, and Prabhupada was in his room. He had breakfast separate, of course. So he's sitting in the room. Harikesha, during breakfast, Harikesha came up to me. You would have to know Harikesh. If you read some of his descriptions of his pastimes, you could get very excitable. Prabhupada finally had him leave. Probably he wanted to stay. He was an amazing preacher. And then he said, Prabhupada, I want to stay. But he gave Prabhupada a hard time while he was with him as his secretary. And he did some cooking. And Prabhupada, I want to stay. He said, all you do is argue with me. Harikesh said, no, I don't. Prabhupada sent him off. But this was 3 years before that. So he was a young brahmachari like myself. And I'm having breakfast. I've been with Prabhupada now 2 months, no more than 2 months. And Harikesh comes up to me and says, a half a dozen men just went into Prabhupada's room and they're yelling at him. And I'm there, no one's in Prabhupada's room. I said, I locked the door before I came to breakfast. No. They're in there. Prabhupada's in there. And they're yelling. He said, they're all yelling at Prabhupada. He said, let's go in and kill them. I said, hold on a minute. Okay, let's see what's going on. Harikesha tells this story. He wanted to literally kill them. He said when he was secretary so many times, people were always going in, challenging Prabhupada, especially the Indians. They would challenge him. And these were challenging Prabhupada. They were all from Gita Press. And they're all white kurta, just like Prabhu there, white kurta, white dhoti. And they're quoting Shastra, and they're complaining. You're turning these malechas into brahmanas. Impossible. You're teaching Krishna consciousness outside of India. This is all against the Shastra. So we came to the door. Harikesh is literally ready to run in there, to just start strangling one by one. And Prabhupada's standing there, right in the midst of this group of men. He's standing there. He let them in. So he's standing and they're all yelling, and Prabhupada just stood there and he had his head down. So now there's 3 or 4 of us outside the door just watching. And these people, they're yelling and screaming and criticizing. And then Prabhupada just kept standing there and he had his head down. He didn't say one word. And gradually, they're yelling, it decreased. The volume decreased. And they just saw Prabhupada stand here. And finally they stopped. And they just all walked out. Prabhupada defeated them. He didn't say one word. He just stood there with his head down, appearing very meek, humble, with his head down. You could say humility was there, but he also knew there's no question talking with these people. It wasn't one, two, half a dozen of them coming from every angle around him. He just stood there. And then they finally all got up and they left. He didn't say anything. He just went back and sat behind his desk. We went back and took prasadam. Harikesha looked at me. He said, "You're so cool." He said, "I wanted to kill them." He said, "But I listened to you." He said, "Then we went and we saw." But then he saw later on his own. We don't go running around choking people. That's not ecstatic choking in ecstasy. No, the Prabhupada had such a wonderful time there. And it was in one of these pandals. They had the Radha Krishna deities at the pandal every night. So when people would come, huge tent, just like we have there over there now, they would come and sit. So you had Prabhupada on the stage with Srila Prabhupada, Vyasa-san, all of his disciples were up on the stage, and the deities, Radha Krishna deities were there. So Prabhupada every day, So every evening Prabhupada gave his lecture. So every evening these people were coming. They're hearing from Srila Prabhupada every evening. And kirtans are going on after the class. Many times was Achyutananda Swami playing the mridanga, chanted so nicely, everything so nice. So then the last day came. Prabhupada gave his class. And then the kirtan started. And it was one of those times Prabhupada got up off of the Vyasa-san. No, I was always right there, just the shadow. So he got up, he got up and he went right to the center of the stage, right at the edge of the stage before where the crowd was. And he's looking at the deities. And he's just looking. And then he started. And then he just started to walk and circumambulate Radha Krishna. These were not installed deities. They were going to be soon somewhere. And he walked around them once. So now, of course, we're like little ducklings. Prabhupada's walking, we're all following right behind him. Do you ever see the ducklings in the, the mother duck and all the whatever? That's what we did. We didn't imitate, we followed. Whatever he did, we're following that. But he walked around just clapping his hands a little bit, and we followed around once, and then he stopped in front of him, turned in front of him, he went around the second time, stopped in front, then he went the third time, just like we see here, Prabhupada, with the fan. He went around the third time, and he bowed and went around, and then he put his hands up in the air, and he's looking out, everyone. And his hands went up, and he just started dancing. So, of course, everyone's going crazy. Prabhupada's in ecstasy. You're in ecstasy. Some little taste. You get some taste of ecstasy. And he's dancing, he's jumping up and down, and everyone's jumping up and down. Jamuna was there. So she was right by the deities, of course. She was dressing them every day, preparing. And then I see, and I go, and she's literally holding Krishna's lotus feet, because the deities are dancing. They're on the altar, but they're dancing because the whole platform is shaking and bouncing up and down. And so Prabhupada's dancing, and the deities are dancing, and we're holding him. And then he stopped. And then kirtan went on, stopped, and then he got into the car. We get into the car the back seat with Prabhupada. And I was also very happy. I said, Prabhupada, I said, this dancing, I said, when you're dancing, I said, everyone goes in ecstasy. And Prabhupada just shook his head. He said, I would have kept on dancing, but I saw that the deities were in danger, so I stopped. So that was December 1972. 6 months later, those deities, they traveled to England, and they wound up at Bhaktivedanta Manor. They had just gotten the manor. So by Krishna's arrangement, Srila Prabhupada's desire, they were the deities. Radha Golokananda. Yes, Golokananda. Gokulananda, Golokananda. In North Carolina, they have Gokulananda. Golokananda there. Oh, Gokulananda, I'm sorry, at the manor. So Prabhupada installed, you can see the installation ceremony at the manor. Prabhupada installed the deities, these same deities that he was dancing in front of 6 months before. And he did the artik, the very first artik to these deities. And the same thing, Prabhupada would be in ecstasy as he's sending Krishna all over the world to these different temples so people can bow down, take some mahaprasadam, offer prayers. So kirtan's going on. And now this is just a little space. The deities are in this one small area. So the kirtan's going on, and Prabhupada finished the artik, and he stands before them with folded hands. And again, he bows down, and he turns around. And then he circumambulated the deities on the altar. He went around, and of course, everyone at the manor, 1, 2 dozen, we're all following Prabhupada as he goes around and around. And he's walking, it wasn't walking, he was walking and a little dancing, clapping his hands once, twice, 3 times. And again, he does the same thing, same relationship with these deities. He bows and he turns around and he puts up his hands and starts jumping up and down in ecstasy. He's delivering everyone all over the world. He was in ecstasy. So if he's in ecstasy, we catch a little. You know, like when the ocean, you see when it comes up to those walls and splashes over. We're getting splashed with ecstasy. We're just getting little bits, but it feels like a lot. So that was Srila Prabhupada. He was always in ecstasy. And then I say that year, 1975, 5 temples in a row. Everywhere he started crying. Because he's seeing, he did it. It wasn't a question of, are we going to get this done? Am I going to be alive long enough? Am I going to be here to be able to spread Krishna consciousness all around the world? By 1975, he saw, he did. And of course, he would always, his mood was so much Sri Sri Gaur-Nitai. Today, appearance day of Gadadhar Pandit. So he was so much in that mood of mercy of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. So he would always glorify them and say, they've come here, just worship them. But it was Prabhupada traveling around. In that next year I was with him, another 2 times, in 2 months. In 2 months, 1 time around the world, 2 months. So this was Prabhupada's ecstasy. Spreading Krishna consciousness everywhere in the world. You want to experience ecstasy, you preach. He would quote Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, it requires life to preach. You have to have life. And of course, preaching gives life. And with life you can preach. So then I was thinking how his disciples, also we could become ecstatic just by seeing Prabhupada do a simple thing. You see, these gopis, didn't matter what Krishna did, everything was source of ecstasy. Every note on the flute, every movement, playing. Prabhupada wrestled with the Gurukula boys in Dallas. They came in his room, played leapfrog with them, wrestled with them. So this time was 50 years ago. There's one very famous story, I guess, used to be told a lot, not so much more. It happened April, right around now, April 1973. Prabhupada, after he left India, after being there for 6 months, now back to the West, but he went right from Calcutta to New York. One flight, I guess maybe to Delhi, then New York, something like that. So it was a very long flight. And that was the flight. Prabhupada's sitting by the window. I'm sitting next to him. Shyamasundar sitting next to me. And the woman's going down with the cart filled with glasses. In the glasses was 7-Up, Coca-Cola, or water on the cart. So as the cart goes by and a woman stops in front of us, funny-looking people, and Prabhupada says, "What is this?" 7-Up, Prabhupada. Okay. So we all took 7-Ups in cups, clear plastic cups, with ice, and the 7-Ups bubbling. Prabhupada was, we say, childlike. You could be in ecstasy just watching Prabhupada just appear so childlike, so innocent. He's just looking at the bubbles. He's looking. And then he grabbed the cup. And we're following to the letter. We grab our cup. You know, no one touches anything before Prabhupada, huh? My wife's like that. She won't eat until I eat. And we wouldn't eat until Prabhupada ate. So he grabs a cup and he's bringing it up. He's looking at it, you know, ice, bubbles everywhere. And he puts it. Now, if you have ice-cold 7-Up, you know what it's like. It actually tingles, does things. And Prabhupada takes it. He let out this, because it's all doing all these things. And he looks at me, he said, "This is very nice." So now we're all just enjoying. Every time he took a sip, he'd do the same thing. It was very good. So we all had, that was the first 7-Up. I mean, I can't say it was a long time. I've been now in this ISKCON society for 2 years. No one ever touched anything. Not even juices you would buy. Everything we made, everything in the temple, everything was made. Nothing prepared. Wouldn't use frozen foods, wouldn't do. So this was big. Prabhupada's drinking a 7-Up. We're in ecstasy. So then that was done. So then we have our lunch. Hours go by. So again, now the stewardess pushing the cart down the aisle. And she stops. Now she's got the whole cart, the cans, everything, you know, the container with ice in it all. So she stops. And in front of us, "Do you want anything?" Prabhupada's, "Up 7. I'll have up 7. So I said, "We'll all have 7-Ups." So now she gives us cans of 7-Ups with the little popping thing. Cans of 7-Ups. And the glasses with the ice. And before he opens, Prabhupada looks at the can and reads it. He goes, "Carbonated water, sugar, citric acid, lemon." He said, "It's all natural ingredients." It was the best 7-Up commercial ever. And he starts drinking his 7-Up. And we're all drinking our 7-Ups. And he says, "Very nice." He said, "It's all natural." So we all had our cans of 7-Up. So that was a 7-Up. So then we arrive in New York. And that was Henry Street Temple, where I was initiated 1 year prior. And we get there, and greet the deities, Radha Govinda. And Prabhupada, right next to the temple room was his quarters. It's like a one-bedroom apartment. And we go inside, and the devotee in the temple, Kirtiraj, says to me, "Does Prabhupada need anything?" And I could never think of anything Prabhupada needed while I was with him, because he never needed anything. He was, whatever he had, that was sufficient. And I was not a very creative personality. Others might have had all kinds of things getting prepared, but something in my head went off, and I said, "Yes, you can bring a 6-pack of 7-Up." He looked at me like I was crazy. 7-Up? I said, "Yes." "You sure?" "Yes, just bring me 6-pack of 7. I didn't say anything else. I said, "Just bring 6-pack of 7-Up." So now he's thinking Srutakirti's really in Maya. He's drinking 7-Ups. So I got the 6-pack, and there was a little mini fridge in a little kitchenette area, and I put it in there, almost like hiding it. It was like hiding drugs, you know. I hid the 7-Up. You don't want this to go around. So then one day goes by, and I can't figure out how to give Prabhupada a 7-Up. He's not asking for it anymore. That was a plane. Planes had their own, regulations. Sometimes we would eat the vegetarian food that they offered on the plane. Later on, he didn't. Early, he didn't. But he could see whatever he did, everybody does, except for getting up at midnight. Nobody's doing that. But everybody, if he was to eat something, they'd eat it, If he was to drink it, they'd drink it. But they couldn't follow his program. That's what it means, don't imitate. That's the very meaning of don't imitate. Don't try to find the one thing you like, how you can enjoy. I'll do that. No, do all the other things first, right? Like we say, Lord Shiva, right, took intoxication, but he drank ocean of poison. Well, we can't do that. Anyway, the time came. Krishna arranges everything. The bell rings. Not even the bell rang. This devotee was in Prabhupada's room with him. It's like 7 o'clock at night, and it's hot. It was a hot summer evening. Prabhupada's windows are open, fans on, no ACs. We didn't have AC. So this devotee comes to me. I'm sitting by the kitchen area, and he had been talking with Prabhupada for some time. He comes to me, he said, "Prabhupada wants water." I said, "Okay, I'll bring it in." Most places there was always the jug. You're like Vrindavan, you have your clay jug sitting there filled with water all the time. I just read that thing somebody put, after 60 you lose your desire to drink. It says most of our problems are due to dehydration, us elders. So we're supposed to drink a lot of water. Prabhupada always drank a lot of water. Always had that jug there, and regularly he would be drinking. So anyway, knowing my service, and he's give me his glass of water. I'm like, no, that's my service. You see, I can be very, what's the word? Possessive, yes. I can be very possessive with my service to Srila Prabhupada to this day. So I said, no, I'll do it. So he just, went back into Prabhupada's room, and I knew now's the time. 7-Up time. So I have a silver plate, silver goblet, a nice chalice. In Catholic Church, we call it the chalice. Nice chalice, silver. And I have cold 7-Up, and I have ice cubes. We're American. Colder the better. I put it in, I put the 7-Up in, and now I go to the door of Prabhupada's room, and the door is closed. Prabhupada didn't do closed doors. He didn't care about closed doors. He had nothing he was hiding. He liked his doors open. You could see what a devotee does. See, I'm reading my books. I'm chanting rounds. I'm doing bhajan. He wanted you to see what it is like to be a devotee. So I come to the door. I open the door. Boy, there's this devotee again, trying to block my devotional service. Don't let anyone stop you from your service. No one get in the way. So he's trying to grab it, and I was a very timid person. But this was very special. So I just pushed past him. Prabhupada's sitting behind his desk. He's always looking marvelous, beautiful, effulgent. And I come in, I put it down on his table, just like this, just a little table. I put it down there, offer my obeisances, and I sit up and I see Prabhupada. What is that? I said, oh, it's 7-Up, Prabhupada. He goes, oh. So then he grabs it, and he stands up. He got up, he stood up, and he goes, this is very nice. And the other devotees looking, Prabhupada's drinking 7-Up at his desk. This is impossible. Prabhupada stood there. Nothing happened for the next couple of minutes. Prabhupada just took sip by sip. You can't drink it all at once. You got to sip it. So he sipped it and he finished it. The whole chalice filled with 7-Up. I said, would you like some more, Prabhupada? He said, no, that's okay. So that was that day. So then the next day comes. Mangalarti, greet the deities, Guru Puja, Prabhupada gives class, has his breakfast. Bali Murdan, Prabhupada, we have a temple we want you to see. This was way before 55th Street. They're in a little brownstone, they were called, 5 stories, narrow. We have this beautiful temple we want you to see. It's a church, big cathedral church. Prabhupada said, all right. So around 10 o'clock in the morning, sunny, warm day, just like here. So Bali Murdan has a car. We had this little 1973. It was this tiny little Toyota Corolla, 4 doors, no air conditioning. It barely fit the 4 of us. Bali Murdan was sitting next to the driver. Driver was Kirtiraj, same person. And Prabhupada in the back, and I'm sitting next to him. So it was a short drive, and park on a spot in Manhattan, big, huge, I don't know what cathedral it was, but glorious cathedral, probably built 100 years before there, stained glass windows, the big chandeliers, so many chandeliers, and the doors were open. So we get out of the car, we're right on the sidewalk. And then Bali says, Prabhupada's ready to go in. Look at the place. And he says, no, we can't actually go in. They don't know we're devotees, so we have to do this, in a concealed way. He said, but I wanted you to see. And Prabhupada's looking, very attentive, and he's looking, and he sees, the church. And you can see all the pews, and you can see, and he said, we'll call it Gauranga Hall. He already named it Gauranga Hall. We never did buy that place. But he was ready. He loved it. Pews were there, everything. Like same thing in Los Angeles when the pews were there. He said people can come in, sit down, and hear lectures, even with their shoes on, not the temple room. He wanted to make facility like that. Anyway, we stood there, talked for a few minutes, and the sun's coming down like noontime. And Prabhupada looks at me, and there's a little, what do they call those stores? Bodegas? Little like Italian grocery store. They were everywhere in New York in those years. Yeah, deli, yeah. So almost every corner there's a little deli for the local people. And Prabhupada was from New York, right? He knew New York City. Don't think Prabhupada was somewhere and he didn't learn. He knew everything going on, all the different parts, the types of people, he knew everything. So he looks at me, he said, They have up 7? He's looking at the store. I said, yes, Prabhupada. I said, you want one? He said, yes. So I turned to Kirti Raj. I said, Prabhupada wants a 7-Up. What? Prabhupada wants a 7-Up. He goes in the store. There's 4 of us. He goes in the store, he buys 1 can of 7-Up. I wasn't very creative, but I was more creative than that. I would have, gotten a whole 6-pack. But he got 1 can of 7-Up. He gives it to me, I give it to Prabhupada. Prabhupada has his cane in his left hand, we always had it. And he's standing there right on the street corner with the can of 7-Up. We didn't have any cameras there. We didn't get any photos, but he's drinking the 7-Up. And always after every sip. And while we were done, and Kirti Raj just looking at Prabhupada, we couldn't believe this person from the spiritual world. He's standing here drinking a 7-Up. And we're in ecstasy. You want ecstasy. See, this is how you get ecstasy. You serve your devotional service. You serve your spiritual master. And he teaches you how to become ecstatic, how to develop ecstatic love for Krishna by developing love for your spiritual master. And that love has actions. Not I love you, I love you, I love you, and you just sit on your butt all day. No, that's not love. You do things. We did things all the time. And just watching him with a can of 7-Up put us in ecstasy. If Satya had a can of 7-Up, I wouldn't go into ecstasy. I might ask him for some, and he'd give it to me. But seeing Prabhupada do anything could make us go into ecstasy. So this is the idea. This is what we're seeing here. The gopis are always in ecstasy. Whatever Krishna does, whatever he doesn't do, whatever he says, when he doesn't say, ecstasy. This is Krishna consciousness. So then we get in the car, and Prabhupada's still holding this ice-cold can of soda. And Prabhupada takes another sip in the car, and then he hands it to me, sitting next to him. And all of a sudden, there's like 4 hands coming from the front seat. There's only 2 people there, but 4 hands are trying to grab my 7-Up. Prabhupada gave to me. But I shared. I was always very good at sharing Prabhupada's Maha. Not very often you got to share Maha 7-Up. And Prabhupada, he's not, but inside he's just laughing like anything at us, because we're like a bunch of monkeys around Prabhupada, but happy monkeys, we're happy. So then that was that. So Prabhupada stayed in New York for 3 days, then he flew to Los Angeles. We get to Los Angeles, greets the deities, gives an arrival lecture, and he goes to his room. And Karundar's in the room. This was 3 days had passed. Karundar's in the room. Karundar was the GBC. He was one of the first, he was the most powerful devotee. We offer obeisances. As soon as he sits up, Karundar says, Prabhupada, everyone's drinking 7-Up here in the Grahastha ashram. All the apartments, they have 7-Up in the ashrams. I heard you're drinking 7-Up. So it beat. Prabhupada got there after, because this is what we would do. Whatever Prabhupada was doing, just like this is what it's about, 10th canto. Whatever he's doing, write that down. We have to tell everyone. He said that one time. You could print. He said a different thing about letters. Sometimes he said you could print. And sometimes he said they're personal, which some of them were and some of them weren't. You had to be able to use your discretion. Some people say you shouldn't read any of Prabhupada's letters. No, that's not true. There's so much information in those letters. And in some of them he says, tell all the devotees they should do like this. So we have to be intelligent. So Prabhupada said, no, I just take for digestion. He said, I took for digestion. He said, but not good that everyone was doing. So he tried to quell it at that time. But it never really happened after that time. There was always 7-Up. And then Prabhupada, he also helped, because a few of the flights, he took one flight from LA to Mexico City. So the same thing, planes were always the same. They'd offer you your drink so you don't get dehydrated. And then Prabhupada would say, everyone have 7-Up. So any of the devotees that were on the plane, they were all personally given 7-Up by Srila Prabhupada. We're all drinking 7-Up because Prabhupada was drinking 7-Up. So I told her, because it was ecstasy. The simplest things for devotees are cause for ecstasy. Then there was the one final, after another years go by, and it was Prabhupada's final flight to London, September 1977. When he left, he went to London for some week or so. And he's on the plane, stops in Dubai. The plane was packed, big planes. On that plane, Balarāma was there, and Guru Kripa was there. And by that time, Prabhupada was already being carried everywhere in a wheelchair. He had dark glasses on, had the sunglasses on because the light was would hurt. And all the devotees, they literally stood in the aisles for the flight from India to Dubai so Prabhupada could lay down because the plane was full. But they made it so he could lie down comfortably. And when it stopped in Dubai, the same plane was going to go to the next stop to London. So some people got off, and at that time, Guru Kripa went over, and he helped Prabhupada sit up because we didn't know what was going to happen. He sat Prabhupada up. And all of us, seeing Prabhupada in that way was very difficult. We're thinking Prabhupada's going through so much of this suffering. And Guru Kripa was sitting there, and he just felt Prabhupada is struggling. He can't even lie down now. And he came and said, Prabhupada had glasses on, and he's even, some drooling is there. Everything. Prabhupada was always in ecstasy. And then Guru Kripa just said, Prabhupada, is anything I can do? Can I get you anything? And Prabhupada said, 7-Up. So 7-Up and airplanes have very special history in ISKCON. And it's 9 o'clock. But I just wanted to say this ecstasy is there for all of us. And if you don't get to experience it, you can't stay. But if you want to experience it, you have to make some endeavors. You have to be engaged full-time devotional service. Then you can experience the ecstasy, and it's available all the time. So, we can stop here. If there are any questions, comments?
When Prabhupada arrived in America, he wrote the poems, just feeling separation from Krishna, and reminiscing that I want to be again playing in the groves of Vrindavan with you there. So, but he never, that's just the very beginning, he kind of revealed his true identity and his intimate connection with Krishna. He never really, after that, openly spoke about that. Can you say something about it?
Yes, because that's Vaishnava way. You don't speak about your private internal ecstasies or realizations beyond something people can't understand. Bro, you never, well, Prabhupada did say in response to a question, like when the reporter said, do you talk to God? Prabhupada said yes. And he talks back. So that's like, we said that's the serious red flag. It's okay, we talk to Krishna. When we say, well, he's talking to me. But Prabhupada always said that possibility, that's there. when one comes to the certain stage. And he said that to the reporter, that Krishna talks, Krishna responds. And the reporter got, and then it was Rameshwar that says, Prabhupada means to say, in other words, just like what I heard years before, same thing Kirtanananda, what Prabhupada means to say. What Prabhupada meant to say, he said. Didn't need, his purports didn't require purports. That's why they're purports. So Prabhupada said, no, Krishna talks to me. But even yesterday when Prabhu said to me, you know, you went in when Prabhupada was talking to Krishna. I said, no, I never observed. I saw him talking to me, you know, different things. But I didn't, you know, devotees have witnessed things, and I don't say they didn't, but I always saw Prabhupada's feet were on the ground when he was walking. Some people say they never touched the ground. Maybe they, you know, and they certainly didn't touch the ground in the material world for Prabhupada, but so different devotees had different things. One devotee here in Vrindavan, you know, he peeked through the door and he said it was like 1,000,000 suns in the room, you know, just like Brahma-jyoti, this effulgence was there. And then he went in and offered obeisances and everything was different. Then one devotee went and told Prabhupada, this devotee said, you know, he saw you and you were there and it's shining like 1,000,000 suns in the room. And Prabhupada said, just see. In other words, just see the nonsense. These people will say anything. But even we see such things. Prabhupada is for just very, like to me, you know, alone in his room. He said, perhaps my father knew. That's a very bold statement to make. Perhaps my father knew. But he said it. But he didn't say it sitting on the Vyasa-san. He said it to me in relationship to a story, saying how much his father just would do whatever he wanted. So these things are there, but you know, like we're talking about the 10th canto, and I said, you know, some of us, I still don't feel very qualified, but you know, we can delve into the different pastimes of Krishna like this. But to come speak about it here, this person's been here 6 months, this one 2 years, this one's 5 years. So that's why we say in the general audiences, you keep things. Prabhupada always was just very philosophical.
The one who's not a pure devotee can't hear or see Krishna, what to speak of having a relationship. So when Krishna appeared, the materialists couldn't really see him. But how is it that all the soldiers on both sides achieved their swarup? Just because they did their duty, or?
Part of Krishna's pastimes. They all Leela, they all left with him. He took everyone with him, right? That was his Leela. Even the demons killed. They're liberated. Even the demoniac are killed or liberated. What to speak of anyone part of Krishna's pastimes. Prabhupada said we're all part of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. You know, at times he singled out, said this one was Lord Chaitanya's associate, this one. But then at other times he said all of my disciples are associates of Lord Chaitanya. Of course we are. We're part of Lord Chaitanya's movement. It's the Sankirtan movement. We're associating. And as much as you associate, you're part of that. And that can be 10%. It can be 110%. But Prabhupada showed us everything, every way. But anyway, now, none of these drinks are natural anymore. Your 7-Up is not natural. Nothing, everything has chemicals, preservatives, colors, dyes, cancer-causing this. So there's, even that ability to have a natural 7-Up has gone away. So, yeah. Well, I don't think so. Do you have a question? No? No? Okay.
So 1975, you said that Srila Prabhupada had the special ecstasy because he could witness
Leaking out.
leaking out.
Yeah. Because he controlled it all the time.
Yes.
So sometimes you lose control.
So because he was witnessing that really this Hare Krishna was spreading all over the world. So it means that, my question is that in 1975, it's like a turning in the ISKCON history that really the whole Krishna consciousness is spreading. Is it?
Whole Krishna consciousness was everywhere by that time. That's what he's seen. He had made the groundwork everywhere. Temples everywhere. His books in those temples. Prabhupada always saw the books were most important because no matter what happens, book is there. I saw my sister. She had Bhagavad Gita on her shelf for 40 years. Same Bhagavad Gita was just sitting there on the shelf. To be read, not to be read, but it was there. So that's, he likes seeing his books in every home. Like here in India, they know, you have a home, Tulsi Devi's there. She purifies the place. The same thing with Prabhupada's books. Just by having the book there, it's purification. It's a beginning. But he saw everywhere he went. Now he's down in South America. He went to Mexico City. He went to Caracas. Hundreds of people everywhere are chanting. So he saw Lord Chaitanya's mercy literally being distributed. There was no question that it might not happen. He couldn't finish. That's why, what did he say? The famous talks here, they say, he said 50% of his work was finished. And the other 50% was Varnashram, the farms like that. So he's saying he did finish. The chanting was everywhere. He had done that. Now he wanted to set up proper societies. But most important thing, he accomplished that. So he was in ecstasy seeing Lord Chaitanya. It was him. Of course, he just gave all the credit to Lord Chaitanya, and it is Lord Nityananda. But it was Prabhupada that took that step. Just put his head down when all those from Gita Press. And why were they upset? What was the real reason they were upset? I'm glad you... From Gita Press, half a dozen men. He was going to cut into their sales. He was going to hurt their sales. Everything's money. That's what they saw. He's printing books. They're going all over the place. What about our Gita Press? They didn't care about any. They cared that their book sales were going to go down because these transcendental literatures were going everywhere. Like every day, 2,000 books a day right here in this one place. So they didn't like that. That's why they were yelling, screaming, quoting Shastra. Prabhupada just, Harikesha, kill them all. I wonder what would have happened. If I didn't say something, I don't know what he would have done, gone in with a group tackle, I don't know. He was like that, Harikesh, he was very young. So yes, that was what it was about, books, Gita Press. They were from Gita Press. All right, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna, thank you.